This week on the Orange Box podcast, we talk about the reveal of the new Star Fox game, Steam Machine's price potentially being much lower than expected, the possibility of a new FromSoft game coming this year, and more. All of this tonight, but first, on to the new Beautiful Bean intro. Welcome to the place where PC and console gaming talk combine. This is the Orange Box Podcast, episode 136. I am your host, the man who, like Star Fox, will be remade next gen for the 5th time, Nathan, also known as the Frozen Gamer 87. And joining me, as always, the man who has been upscaled from 864p to 4K, Justin, better known as I Am Zaracon. How you doing today? How's your week been?
It's been quite good. So I had been thinking to myself recently, I probably should go ahead and do a couple of upgrades for the computer I'm using, and I said partially just because of the fact that the CPU is several generations old and it's probably bottlenecking my 9060 XT, so I said I might, go ahead and get something. So I went past Micro Center, got a combo. Unfortunately, I did have to, just because they didn't have any of the mini ITX motherboards, at least at a reasonable price. So I just said, I'll purchase the CPU. I'll keep the motherboard just because I might use that later down the road, or if I need to troubleshoot something, it'll be nice to have that on hand. But I said, I'll look at trying to get a motherboard later on, just because mini ITXs are just insane. They're ridiculously expensive. I don't know if they're expensive on Intel's side, but at least with the current generation of AMD ones, they are pretty costly, especially if you want to get something that's at least decent. But then I did see a deal that I saw on YouTube for Asus motherboards, so I was like, let me check that out. And so I was able to actually get one at a reasonable price. It was much cheaper than I thought I would have to spend. So I'm like, all right, that was nice. So I got that ordered, and it should be coming in later this week as well. Of course, naturally, yesterday was Mother's Day, so for my mom, I made her lunch. I made her dinner as well. So I made her an omelet, also made some pancakes, and also just because I'd seen this in the store while I was grocery shopping, I saw this honey butter that looked nice. I said, haven't really had that before. I got some demi baguettes, so I just spread that on, toasted them, and those actually tasted pretty good, so I thought that was good.
Nice.
And then for dinner, I made a shrimp Alfredo pasta bake with some garlic bread on the side as well. Surprisingly, just because my sister came to see my mom, she came by with the kids, and so she spent a good deal of time talking with my mom while the kids were with me, and so the usual shenanigans occurred and whatnot, but it was a good time all in all. But yeah, that was... and then of course there was one last thing, which was a bit of a surprise for me, and I didn't expect it to come in. So Saturday, this little guy came in the mail, and so I was like, okay. So I just initially unboxed it Saturday, but I started playing around with it a little bit, also Saturday too, and did some stuff with that. But I'll talk a little bit more of that, partially with the games, since some of those games were related to the controller. But just offhand, I will say that this thing is great, and I definitely enjoy this controller so much. But yeah, that is everything that has happened this past week.
All right. Well, obviously, I'm jealous that you already have your Steam controller. Mine is supposed to be showing up tomorrow, and for reference, we are recording on Monday because Thursday, Friday, I'm going to be out. But And so we're getting it done, getting the recording done early so I can edit early, and that way be all set, for the normal release on Friday. But yeah, I'm definitely interested to hear your thoughts on it. I mean, like, I'm not expecting it to be anything dramatically different from what I expect, especially, having used the Steam Deck for several years. But nevertheless, I'm looking forward to hearing your thoughts on that. On my end, of course, Friday we made the trip. Well, we started the trip out to Wyoming, and I think we got on the road about like 5:45-ish. Because we had basically, we had obviously packed up as much as we could the day before, and then the last little bit of packing we had to do first thing in the morning after I walked the dogs and all of that, and stopped for breakfast real quick for just me and the wife that we could eat real quick and get on the road. Long day of driving, thankfully uneventful. The drive was much more pleasant than last year because of the fact that we didn't have to deal with not having air conditioning. Plus, it's also not the middle of summer, so even if we hadn't had air conditioning, it wouldn't have been that bad. But yeah, the ride was smooth. Van seems to get pretty good gas mileage, so that was nice. Yeah, nothing dramatic. It was a pretty uneventful trip. It was nice from that standpoint. Stopped in Colorado, stayed there for the night, and then we drove the rest of the way to Wyoming the next day and got here mid-afternoon on Saturday, so gave us some time to rest a bit and all that. Unfortunately, I'll say right now, even though there are several games on my list that I played this week, I didn't really get that much game time apart from the bit that I did in the car. Really, that was the most game time I got during the times that I wasn't driving. But yeah. Well, I guess there was some gaming before we went on our trip as well. But anyway, I'll get to that in a bit. Trying to think anything else. Of course, yesterday was Mother's Day. Because of the fact that I've been so focused on the trip and everything, I hadn't really planned anything specific for it. There's the usual thing that we do every year where Mother's Day, where basically I will give my wife a day to just rest and do absolutely nothing. But because of the way our scheduling works out, it's going to be probably sometime after we get back that she gets her full day off, where she doesn't have to worry about anything with the kids or anything else, and she can just rest and read or whatever she wants to do. So, but I did make some green bean mushroom risotto yesterday, which is my first time making risotto. It came out pretty good. More than anything, it's just like it's the technique that I'm not really familiar with because I've never made it before, and so making it from scratch wasn't like difficult per se. It just I was going the best I could off of instructions, but I wasn't following the exact recipe, which made it a little more challenging because I wanted to make it the green bean mushroom thing. So I basically just made cream of mushroom soup and then added some green beans to it, and that's cream of mushroom soup from scratch, and then added the green beans to it, and then started doing the risotto with some of the broth that I would normally have included in the soup. To cook it initially, and then added the rest of the stuff to it and mixed it up and cooked the rest of the way that way. So worked out. I guess the only other real thing, obviously, I had to work today, and I'll be working tomorrow and Wednesday, and then Thursday, Friday we'll be going into, Thursday, Friday, and part of the day Saturday we'll be going to Yellowstone. So we're staying there for a couple nights, and we'll be driving back sometime Saturday, and then we have church on Sunday and everything. My wife and I will be doing a special there, and then it'll just be more of a normal, like, chill week until we have to leave that Friday, that following week. So heading back home. But the kids are done with school for the year, so I mean, they started early. They started in August last year so that they could end early May, so that it would be done before we came out here. And then they'll be back to school, early, or sometime in August. I can't remember exactly when they start, but yeah, so it gives them some time. But yeah, can't really think of anything else. I mean, obviously, like I said, my Steam controller is supposed to be arriving tomorrow, and I'm looking forward to giving that a go. Yeah. All right, so what have you been playing with your brand new Steam controller?
Well, so I will just get this one out of the way. Although I did actually finish up things on the Steam controller, with the Steam controller. I played some more Vampire Crawlers. I got the final 2 achievements that I needed for the game.
Nice.
One of them was a little bit trickier than I thought, just because there's a boss fight, or I guess it's technically not counted as a boss fight, but there's a fight you have to go through. But in order to actually activate the boss fight, it's not in any particular dungeon. It's something you trigger if you break a card that you have eventually. So after learning that's what I needed to do, I was able to go through the fights, and because my deck had pretty much been, just fully stacked, and I've been able to like build it up throughout the run, by the time I got to that fight, it was pretty uneventful, just because I was able to just combo him to death before he could even really do anything. So if he was the challenge, I wouldn't know, because my deck was just that well built by that point.
Nice.
But getting through the final area, though, that was a bit of a challenge, just because the enemies there were a lot stronger starting out than they normally would be when you start a dungeon. And so trying to actually build up a deck or have a deck built up that's strong enough requires you to actually have members in your party who can help you with that. So having a character whose card can generate like a mana card, that helps out, so that way you can get some free mana every time you cast that card, especially if you're able to convert that into a wild card, so that way you don't have to even pay any mana up front in order to get that extra mana card. So that definitely helps out a whole lot. But yeah, so getting through that, it took me a couple attempts, but I finally got through the final boss, and I wasn't thinking about this being Vampire Survivors, because the final boss was the same boss in Vampire Survivors.
Nice.
So you do face him there, and he does have 2 phases, but it wasn't too bad. Like, if you're able to actually get to that point where you face him, it's not going to be that bad, because it's pretty much going to be the same as with any other boss you've encountered so far. It's just a matter of, hey, is your deck already well developed before you reach the final floor? If so, you're great. If not, then you're probably going to have to give it another shot. And then there's like a nice little, I guess, victory lap, you can say, where you go essentially start at the very beginning of the game through the credits until you reach the end and you beat the game, which is nice, slow, just nice slow down from how things just were being hyped up with the boss fight. So all in all, it's a great game. I think I'm definitely pretty much done for now, because I don't think there's really anything else that I could technically try to just earn some more gold, so I can either increase the potency of some of my power-ups, or try to just improve some of the cards I already have, or improve the balance of the gems I have. But I don't think that's really necessary right now, as the way things are. If the game is treated like Vampire Survivors, I know eventually there will be more content added in, and some updates, and then I'll probably go back in there, especially if there are new achievements attached to them. Then I'll be like, yeah, I definitely have to go back now. But as far as right now, I am done with the game.
Okay.
But then from here on out, these are games that I specifically just played to test out the Steam controller. And this one I didn't really do too much of, but I just want to mention this here quickly, is Satisfactory, and there's also no gameplay footage for this one. I played this one partially because this is the one game I actually will not, or I do not want to play with a controller. Of all the games that I have played, this is just the one where I'm like, it just feels so bad playing with the controller. And I've tried doing different stuff in the past to try to map things to the controller, but it just doesn't work out well. Weirdly enough, though, even though it's, controller compatible, the Steam controller just does not work with this thing as it is out of the box. And I don't know partially if that's something on my end because of something that I have set up with the computer, especially with the game files. I don't know if that's a case, but just for some reason, this game just does not work. And it only works if you actually treat it as a mouse and keyboard. Okay. Once you set up that way, it works very well. And it's pretty much like using a mouse and keyboard. And because it has the trackpad, it feels so well to play the game. And I would rather play it that way if I'm using a controller, even though I would still rather just use mouse and keyboard at the end of the day. But this is, I think, a great alternative to that. So I only did that for about 2 minutes once I finished configuring things. And then the next thing I played was Fear. And this was actually a game I first tried playing on the Steam Deck, primarily just because I wanted to try out the trackpads on there, since the game, at least on PC, is not compatible with controllers. And controllers aren't supported. So I said, let me try using this because the trackpads would work well with this. And yeah, I mean, I think for some reason when I first booted up the game, there were probably one set of controls that were set up just out of the box, and it seemed fine when I was looking at them in the controller settings initially, but then for some reason the right trackpad, instead of just moving the camera normally, it would do a tilt lean as you would move around, and I'm not certain why that was the case initially. And then later on through the game I realized this is how you're supposed to be peeking around corners, and so I'm like, why is it doing that? It shouldn't be doing that. Like if I tried using the right joystick, then it would work as you would normally expect the the mouse to move, the right stick to move, the camera to move. But for some reason the trackpad wasn't working, so I said, let me just look again at the controls in the Steam input and see what happens there. And then when I went back in, the right trackpad was working as a normal camera without doing the little tilt. So I'm not sure what had happened there, because I didn't even really change anything at that point. But all in all, I think it works pretty well. I think the trackpad, it works incredibly well for games where you would normally use a mouse. So like FPS games definitely use that, just because it works responsively. Now I do admit that I would have to spend more time with this game just to get more accustomed to how it works. And I think that whenever the controls switched around a bit, it definitely changed a few things, because there was one button that had been, I think, the melee attack, but for some reason it wasn't working anymore, so I had to mess around with some buttons trying to figure out what was going on or what would even work. And then eventually I found out what button was working as that key. So it might take a little tinkering, but it definitely works well. The controller definitely works well with this game, and I think it's definitely something you could use. And I think the game was on console, so I'm not certain why out of the box it didn't have controller support for the PC version, but you could play it like this. I think it works well enough. And then the next game that I tried out was Power World, and I played this one not primarily for the trackpads or anything, but I wanted to try out the gyro controls. And this, I would say, is probably, at least right now, one of the weaker parts of the Steam controller, because for some reason, at least based on how I've been using it for this game, while tilting it up and down, like this, works fine for the y-axis, but trying to do it on the x-axis is weird. You have to actually twist it like this and not try to like do something like that, which is very awkward. And it feels so stilted and it doesn't feel natural. So I just stopped using gyro at that point. And I will also note, interestingly enough, is that while Valve's trailer for the Steam controller was talking heavily about the sensors in the grip, at least for this game, out of the box, the gyro is set to go to the right thumbstick.
Okay.
So that's interesting. So you would have to actually change it to the grip sensors to use gyro, which I think is odd since they were, advertising the sensors in the grip. So I would think, hey, if we're advertising this, we will set it to this. But they didn't do that. So it was an interesting choice there, I guess. But yeah, I would have to try the gyro in another game. But at least for here, it felt very weak, and I would not use it here. Now, I did try tinkering with it a bit here and there, but it didn't really seem to change much. But I probably would have to just do some more configuring to get it to work better. Because I know that with the Steam Deck, it worked more like how I would think it would work, but just for some reason, it just wasn't working here as well as I would like. And then lastly, and this was actually something that I really tried out just because of my niece and nephew, I tried out the controller with Minecraft. And primarily it's because on Linux, you can only play the Java version of Minecraft, which does not support controllers. So you would have to use mouse and keyboard. And I thought about it, I said, well, since you have the right trackpad, you could treat this as a controller. You could treat it as a mouse and keyboard. So I did that, and it works very well.
Okay.
It works, you can use the right trackpad to move around. You can use it to go through the menus and stuff. And of course, for everything else, like the WASD and then all the right click, left click, and then, scrolling through with the bumper buttons, it works well. So you're pretty much getting the same, more or less the same controls you would get for the Bedrock / console versions, but you just have to use the right trackpad for, menus and stuff. So I would say that this is probably the definitive way to play Minecraft if you're playing on Linux, or the Steam Deck too, for that matter. Well, the Steam Deck has trackpads built in anyway, so you're good there. But yeah, it did a great job here, and I definitely think that the more mouse keyboard oriented games will do very well here. And sure, that's sort of the goal that I think Valve had when they first made the original Steam controller, but they did it at the cost of games that natively supported controllers. And I think that because they actually do have a better balance of being able to say, hey, we can use regular control designs, but also still use mouse and keyboard layouts as well. It just makes the Steam controller overall a great controller for PC gaming. So yeah, that's everything that I've played, and I thought that was a pretty decent variety of games to try out. But yeah, that's everything.
All right. So as far as well, I guess first I had some questions about stuff that you mentioned. So with Pal World, one of the things I was wondering is the game recognizing the Steam controller as the Steam controller, or is it recognizing it as something different?
That's a good question. I honestly haven't checked. I would guess that maybe it's... That's a good question. I would have to go back and check. I mean, I know that at least with Satisfactory, since I had to do a heavy amount of configuration there, it did recognize it as a Steam controller and not as, like an Xbox controller or a DualSense or anything like that. So maybe it was the same way with Pal World. I would have to double check though. But yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I guess just one of the things I was wondering about is whether sorry, my brain's not working. one, whether or not it even has, like, if grip sense is active by default, because I'm almost wondering if maybe it's not a matter that grip sense doesn't work. It's just that because of the fact that maybe Power World is not a game where they had that configured in, then it's just not recognizing it by default. I mean, you know, like, it's not turned on by default, and it's something that, like, a lot of games will be able to recognize it, but maybe this particular game doesn't initially, and that you could still turn it on. So that's one thing I was thinking about. The other thing I was thinking is with the aiming, I mean, like, at least for me, when it comes to gyro, I almost never use it for horizontal movements for the aiming. I really just use it for the fine-tuning on the vertical aiming. And so like, you know, I'll use the joystick primarily to aim, and then I'll just, you know, tip the controller, whatever, the gyro, in order to get fine-tuning, especially on that vertical aiming, because especially when you're trying to go for, like, headshots or specific parts of the body and that sort of thing, it's a little different. But either way, I'm curious about how it would end up working in games that, like, do natively support controllers for aiming, you know. And when I say that, I mean, like, first-person shooters and stuff like that, like, where it has that as a default, whereas Power World, yes, it can have controllers, of course, but it's different than, like, Fear, where you didn't have the native controller support. So
Right.
Yeah, so
I'll definitely look into that.
I'll have to check that out as well once mine comes in, at least whenever I get a chance to actually mess around with it. I've also found some games just the gyro doesn't seem to work really. Like, both with Steam games and non-Steam games, occasionally it's just like I'll try using the gyro for aiming and it just doesn't do anything, even when you configure it. So definitely curious about all that. But anyway, all right. As far as what I've been playing this week, I'll kind of just go in more or less reverse order. I'll start off by mentioning a couple of games that I tried to play while I was in a car when I wasn't driving, but I couldn't because DRM for those particular games, and so I had to find something else to play. So, actually, I should back up even further. Because before that, so of course, you know, we'll be talking later about the new Star Fox game that was revealed. And especially after seeing the price for it and everything, I just thought, you know, I've been holding off on getting the Star Fox 64, or I just hadn't gotten around to getting it for PC, getting the decomp for that. So I went ahead and downloaded that and installed that and played that a bit on my Steam Deck. And it's good stuff. You know, lock 90 FPS, no problems. I didn't try it out on my desktop or my laptop at all, but I just tried it out on the Steam Deck, and I didn't do very well. Like, I only got, I think, through the first, like, 3-ish levels. I got to one of the secret levels, which is on the, I can't remember the name of the solar planet, but it's, like, you know, lava and stuff, and I couldn't get past the boss there. But yeah, so, and there was a couple of things that were just a little like, okay, I'm trying to remember the different controls and stuff like that, because the last time I played it was on 3DS, and so, you know, 3DS, the controls are a bit different, and of course, then playing the Super Nintendo version as well was quite different before that. I mean, as well, I think I either played 64 3D last, or I played the Super Nintendo version on the SNES Classic last. But either way, the controls were different. So, getting used to some of that. But overall, like, it's solid. Be nice if there was, like, I'll have to check and see if there are any mods for, like texture improvements and that sort of thing. Just, especially when it comes to, like, the things like the dialogue boxes and that sort of thing, where it's definitely much lower resolution than the rest of it, because it scales pretty well resolution wise for the other stuff, and, like, obviously it runs really well, and that sort of thing. So overall, like, it was a pretty solid experience. But yeah, I was having a good time with it. I was hoping that I could just, do a full run through, but because of the fact that I was pretty rusty on the controls, I was definitely making a lot of dumb mistakes. And, I'm not sure if I've ever actually finished the 64 version, the regular 64 version. I think I've only really finished the 64 3D version. But either way, it was still really good stuff. And of course, obviously the fact that it runs so well on PC, at least on Steam Deck, and obviously would run well on a regular PC is really nice. I do wish that there was a way to separately control the aiming from the movement, just because, obviously that's more of a modern feature that didn't exist back when Star Fox 64 came out. And it's possible that someone will add in a mod for that, but I haven't found anything yet. Granted, I didn't look very much either. So, but going back to the stuff in the car. So I did attempt to play both Persona 3 Reload and what was the other one? Actually, no, that was the only one that had DRM that prevented me from playing it. The other one, I tried to play a demo for a game called Alaric, but it's only mouse and keyboard. So it wasn't really working. And so I didn't even bother trying to do anything further with it. I'll have to try it separately on a desktop or with the Steam controller. Well, I could theoretically get the controls configured enough, but the problem was that I couldn't figure out what the different controls were well enough with the way it was configured by default. So I was just like, okay, I'm not even going to worry about this right now. But then because of the fact that I couldn't get any of those things working, I went ahead and played some more Ys 8. And so the with that, I got through the next boss, which was, it's like this big turtle called Serpentis. It's like a big poisonous turtle that you face. And this is when I had gotten past in the Switch version, I'm positive. And it took me quite a few tries to get through this fight, but I did eventually complete it. And I played some more beyond that, but the next boss I have not been able to defeat yet. It's like this chameleon that's on top of a log. And I don't know if you remember, because I don't know how far you had gotten the game, but yeah, it's been a big challenge, especially because like one hit from that thing does like 250 damage, and I'm slightly under level 2, so that doesn't really help anything. And it's basically gotten to the point where I'm probably going to have to just maybe try to find an area with a good number of enemies that's like right near a healing crystal thing, and then just grind through killing a bunch of enemies and try to get leveled up a bit and reface that boss, so I can actually get past it. But as an overall thing, I mean, the game is really still very good. I do enjoy the gameplay quite a lot. It's just that obviously playing on the second highest difficulty on Inferno difficulty is very, very difficult. So it's been a challenge, especially just like running out of healing items and revival items and that sort of thing. And so it's just, and then figuring out how to best avoid attacks. And like when I was fighting the turtle thing, I'd be, focusing primarily on his tail, but it took me a while to figure out that the best thing for me to do was to jump up in the air, attack his tail 3 times, and then rather than doing the finishing fourth part of the attack where it slams down on the ground, I just like dodge away so that I'm less likely to get hit when it slams his tail on the ground and does a huge chunk of my health worth of damage. But yeah, so that, like I said, that one took quite a while to get through, and then the most recent one I just haven't been able to beat yet. So the furthest I've got, I think I got him down, the current boss that I'm on, I think I got him down like 3/4 of the way, because I got him down through his yellow health bar, and then half to 2/3 of the way through the red health bar. So, but yeah, anyway, so yeah, I'm just kind of slowly working on that, but it is a difficult game, and I think especially with the current boss, I need to grind. I need to probably just focus on getting a bunch of healing items and then see if that'll help me to better complete that fight, because I'm just not doing so hot. So, but yeah. Then I also, because it just became available a couple days ago, got the PC version, one of the two PC versions that was being worked on, decompilation of Legend of Zelda Twilight Princess. And so I tried it initially on my desktop or on my laptop, and it was like I was kind of having some issues with the way it was displaying, because while technically it can go above like the 30 frames per second it is by default, it's kind of weird because when you initially boot it up, by default it's already set to do 60 FPS. But then when you or whatever the max refresh rate is of your monitor. But then if you mess around with the VSync or anything like that, then it will try going to whatever the maximum refresh rate is of whatever screen you have connected at the time. So in my case, like, I was trying to play it on one of the screens I have here in my office space here in Wyoming. That's just a 60 hertz screen, 1080p 60 hertz. But the problem was that it was trying to do it at 165 hertz, which is the refresh rate of my laptop. And so then when I was trying to do that, it seemed like it was adding interpolated frames in there. And so it was just not quite feeling as responsive as it should have. And it just wasn't really working for me. So I stopped bothering with that, but then I ended up getting it installed on the Steam Deck, and then I didn't mess around with those settings and everything. And I was getting a locked 90 frames per second. And I'm not quite through the tutorial yet, because more than anything, I just wanted to test it out. But man, I forgot how long that tutorial really is. It's just like, I mean, I remember people always complaining about it, but I think the very first time I played it, was on the Wii back in 2007. And when I played it back then, I was just so excited to play it, especially because I had like bought the Wii while I was, funny enough, here in Wyoming during the summer, but I had it shipped to my house in Alaska because I was here. This was 2007 was the first summer after my wife and I had started dating and / courting, whatever you want to call it. And so I was staying with her and her family and working that summer. And so I was able to buy a Wii, but because of the fact that I wasn't sure how long it would take, I had it shipped to Alaska instead. And then, so I didn't even get to play it until a month after I bought it. And so when I played the game the original time, I was just so excited that the length of the tutorial did not bother me in the slightest. And then the next time I really played through it was when I played through it on the Wii U version. And once again, then it wasn't bothered by it at all. And this time I'm just like, wow, this is taking forever. Of course, it doesn't help that I was also kind of skipping the cutscenes because I just wanted to get to the gameplay more. And yeah, so either way, I mean, the game runs great. It looks a bit, I mean, it's, you can easily set it. You can either have it in the original 4:3 aspect ratio of the GameCube version, or you can do it as widescreen. And either way, it's great from that standpoint. Like I said, runs super smoothly. The fact that I'm getting locked 90 on the Steam Deck with no problems has been really nice. I know there's supposed to be like an additional texture pack you can install. I just haven't gotten around to messing with it yet. So I do want to do that. And I don't think it's complete, the texture pack that you can add on. It just improves the lighting and all that stuff. But this is also just, I mean, it's technically sort of in the early stages. Like it's complete to where you can play the game beginning to end without any problems. But if you want the additional bells and whistles, better textures and everything else, you may have to wait for that extra stuff. But either way, you can still run it at whatever resolution your screen will go up to. You can actually bump up the resolution to up to 12 times native resolution. So And I think it can be up to 12 times the resolution of your screen, actually, is what you can do. So I didn't even bother trying to do that on the Steam Deck. I will probably try to do that on my desktop at home, just for the sake of seeing, how it will run when running at like 10K or whatever it is that it would run at. I'm curious to see what will happen with that. But yeah, like you can, like bump up shadow resolution and stuff like that already by default, with the various settings that you can modify. It's supposed to have the ability to use gyro, but I couldn't get the gyro to work. So, even when doing stuff with the Steam Deck, turning on the gyro on there and everything, it just wasn't really working right for me. So, and it seems like that might be an issue other people were having too. So it may just be something that I'll have to keep my eyes peeled and see if someone comes up with a way to easily fix that. And in the meantime, I just, when I play it, I'll play without. I will say the one thing though with this is that, like, although I enjoy Twilight Princess, like at least once you get into the main game and past the tutorial, the combat is overly easy, at least, early on. And, the one thing that it did kind of make me want to do is go back to Darksiders 2, which I haven't done yet, but I do want to do that at some point because, Darksiders 2 is a Zelda-like, and of course the combat is much better. And of course the game, it's just much fresher of a game because of the fact that it's not, something I played multiple times. So, but yeah, Twilight Princess is pretty cool so far. But the game that I definitely played most of which was after leaving home, was Pragmata, and I finished it. I finished the main story. After I finished the main story, I got the additional mode that you get, which is basically just like a new area that unlocks that allows you to you go through a bunch of different trials, and then part of what you need to do in order to unlock all the trials is you have to go back and reface the bosses, but they're like upgraded versions of the bosses. And most of them were not overly difficult. I did them in reverse order because I figured I'd start with the hardest one and work my way backwards, except of course the very final boss that you have, when you fight the 2.0 version of that you can't do until after you complete the entire mode. And doing that plus beating the boss makes it so that you get the true ending of the game. And so yeah, it was the final boss initially, and I'll just point out this footage that's playing is actually from playing on Lunatic difficulty, the little bit that I've done, which I haven't gotten super far in, and I'll get to that. But the boss fight, like the initial one, I think it took me probably like 5 tries to beat. When I fought the 2.0 version of it, it took me quite a few more tries before I finally was able to beat it. And, but then so then the only thing I have left as far as achievements is getting through the game in Lunatic mode, which is a lot more difficult. You do have, so when you start Lunatic mode, for one, you have already unlocked, well, if you've done the other mode, the extra mode that unlocks after you beat the game, called Unknown Signal, you get 2 new weapons from that. And then once you complete all of the stuff in Unknown Signal, you get 1 final weapon unlock that's like really, really good. And I won't say too much about it other than the fact that it basically runs on your currency. It's like many other games where you can do more damage if you charge it up, and then it like uses your currency to do extra damage. So, but when you go into Lunatic mode, you have the ability to, all of the different weapons show up as available to purchase, essentially. So you unlock it the first time, and then you can craft it and you can upgrade it and so on. But of course, you also don't really have any currency to start with. And there's mods and hacking nodes and that sort of thing that you also can purchase. And it's just, all the upgrades that you've previously gotten, you don't have access to other than the ability to purchase them. So you can purchase the things that you want and you don't have to purchase everything, which can be nice if you want to like focus on specific weapons that you want to get. And then, you'll still probably run into times where you can pick up other stuff, but that other stuff is not going to be permanent unlocks unless you permanently unlock it, and then you can upgrade it however much you want to upgrade it. But yeah, the lunatic difficulty so far, I've kind of hit a bit of a wall. It's a same encounter, which is actually playing right now, and it is the encounter that I got stuck on for a little bit in my first playthrough. So it's definitely more like I wish I didn't. I just need to get past this encounter, because I think that this is easily the one that I think slowed me down the most initially when I was playing the game, and it's slowing me down again. And so I am just kind of annoyed right now with it. I was trying to finish it up earlier, and I got close a couple times and then just died. And the really frustrating thing is of course, I'm like way underpowered compared to where I was at the end of the first playthrough. But then also, like, my healing items right now don't do as much for healing because they haven't been upgraded very much, and I don't have just all the upgrades, and so I'm just like significantly weaker and having a harder time with it. And of course everybody hits harder and I don't do as much damage to them, and so it's just one thing after another that makes it more challenging. But although I've thought about potentially just holding off and not playing any more of this for a while and then just coming back to it later, at the same time it's also probably better to play it while I'm still more fresh with the controls, like I'm used to it. And I mean, there's a possibility I may just stop for a bit, and then more focus on playing it after I get back home when I have, better frame rates and everything else. But we'll kind of see where we get with that. What I can say though is that at the very least, I've enjoyed the game a lot. It's been well worth the time I put into it, and I've put like 40 hours into it. And granted, that was probably because I spent some more time like doing exploration and sometimes trying to figure out how to get to certain things that were like items and upgrades that I didn't have easy, or that I couldn't figure out how to get to. And so now it's like, okay, I know this thing I can't get until this point later when I have this particular upgrade or, ability added and all of that. But yeah, I don't know if there's really much else to say about that. I may end up just trying to play something a little bit different here and there, just to kind of, I don't know, a little change of pace, because I've been playing a lot of harder games. I mean, between playing this on Lunatic and playing Ys 8 on Inferno difficulty, and then, what was the other one I was playing? I don't even remember.
Played Salt and Sacrifice recently.
Yeah, that's right, Salt and Sacrifice, which I did boot up briefly, but I didn't play very much. I basically just booted it up long enough so I could save the game and turn off the Switch 2 before we went on our trip, so I wouldn't waste the battery. But yeah, I feel like I probably should just kind of like do something a little bit different for just a bit, just to kind of give myself a breather from the hard games. But I don't know. I think a lot of it is really just going to depend on if I continue to be stuck on this one encounter in Pragmata. Because if I continue to be stuck on it, I may just step away for a little bit and then come back to it after I get home. But if I'm able to get past that encounter, I might be able to just keep pushing through and work forward from there. So we'll see what happens. But yeah, that is everything.
All right. So regarding Ys 8, so I have not made it as far as you did. I haven't even made it to when I played it on the Switch, I didn't even make it to the first boss fight. So with the turtle, regarding the tail, is that just a better place to be at to attack just to avoid damage, or is that just like a weak point for the boss fight?
It's one of 2 weak points. Basically, it's the head and the tail are the 2 weak points, and both have their own set of dangers associated with them. I know that if I were to lower the difficulty, I probably could get through any of these fights significantly easier, but I also just kind of like sometimes being a little more efficient in how I play through games, because especially for like a JRPG that I know is going to be longer, I'm not necessarily going to want to play through it multiple times. And so if I can just play through it one time and, you know, get the difficulty related achievement or whatever, then I will do that. I will say that if I had to play through a New Game Plus, which I don't think I have to, but if I did have to, I probably would go to a much easier difficulty and then just enjoy the ease, either that or the ease. The Ease of Ys. Or either that, or I would go back to Inferno, you know, in my New Game Plus state where I'm much stronger and theoretically be able to get through everything a lot easier. A lot easier. But yeah.
Okay. And yeah, I've got quite a bit to say about Twilight Princess. So I'm right there with you regarding the long prologue, because when I played that for the first time, and then granted, I played Twilight Princess late because I didn't get the because I originally played it on the GameCube, but I got that like years after, you know, the game released. And yeah, I remember playing through that and I'm like, this feels like a Ocarina of Time all over again. just because of how long this section is.
The prologue is way longer
in
in this game than it was in Ocarina of Time, though. I mean, I guess if you consider the Kokiri tree to be the prologue, then technically it's similar. But I don't know. I think it doesn't feel as long to me because of the fact that at least with the Kokiri tree, it's not the Kokiri tree, Deku tree, Great Deku tree.
Oh yeah.
With going through that, like if you know where to go, it goes very fast. Like I could get through the entire thing in half an hour, and that's, you know, with me not trying to speed run or anything. But yeah.
Well, I feel like with like Ocarina of Time, it's up until you get into the Deku tree that for me that counts as the prologue, just because
Gotcha.
It's like a whole lot of walking around talking to people before I can actually do anything.
But if you know where to go, then literally all you have to do is go get the shield and go get the sword, and then you're good to go.
Yeah, it just feels like a bog to me. But like,
fair enough.
Twilight Princess though, that one definitely was like, I mean, yeah. I kind of got past it the first time I played it because I was like, man, I've been wanting to play this game for years. No, I finally got around to it. And unfortunately, I didn't really get to play too much of the game because I had bought it from a used from a shop, and unfortunately, the game crashed right when you get into the first full dungeon. And I was like, okay, let me just try booting the game up again. Oh, it keeps crashing every time you enter the dungeon, and so I was like, well, I feel like I've been cheated after how much I spent on this thing.
Yeah.
So of course, years later, playing the Wii U version, I was like, awesome, can't wait to come back to this game. And I was like, yeah, I forgot about this prologue section here, but yeah, from what I played of the game, it definitely is enjoyable. Now I don't think it probably lived up to my expectations of, based on how I had thought about the game, but I still thought it was a fairly good Zelda game to play. I'd have to play it again just to remember if like you were saying earlier about the combat being fairly easy on. I would have to go to back because I can't exactly remember offhand, but I thought that was an interesting comment that you made. But since there is the PC port, I might have to go ahead and try it out. Although I am glad that you also mentioned about not changing any of the V-syncs, things like that, so that way it doesn't mess up with your with the frame rate or whatnot. So that's definitely good to know, and I'll keep that in mind. Yeah, it's. I mean, granted, this is based on the. Is this the? Yeah, this would be based off the GameCube version. Yeah,
it is.
Okay, yeah. So, I guess I could understand why the to a degree then that gyro aiming isn't where it should be, since it sounded like it was the Wii U version. But at the same time, since this is a, I guess, port with additional features, I would think it should have been better, but I can at least understand why it's not as then I guess as it's not where it should be. But yeah, I definitely am interested in getting back into this game. Oh, and then about Star Fox 64. Yeah, so I wasn't aware about of the well, initially I wasn't aware about the 3DS version. Are there any major differences between the 64 and the 3DS version?
I mean, I think the only real difference is just visuals. I think otherwise it's exactly the same.
Okay, yeah. I never played that version. I've only played the original on 64, and I didn't unlock all the paths that you can take and whatnot, but I got through the at least the main stuff for the game, and yeah, it definitely was pretty good. I never did. I mean, I played a little bit of the SNES version on the SNES Classic, but I didn't get too far on that version. But 64 was definitely good, and I do, at some points in the midst of the ever-growing backlog, need to get to the try out the decomp for that, because
well, I mean, the good thing is that it's short enough that you can get through it in an hour if you as long as you're not too rusty.
True. Yeah, but I feel like, though, my rust is so rusty that the rust has rust.
Yeah. All right, anything else?
No, sir.
All right, sounds good. Well, let's get into the news. And so, first of all, as far as the topics go, we're going to try to cover as much as we can. But I figure since we were just talking about Star Fox, we should talk about this Star Fox remake that got officially revealed in a direct last week. So, the really interesting thing about this is just the fact that it is technically the fourth remake of Star Fox. And so it's very interesting from that standpoint. Now, I won't get too much into my commentary, but basically this is a full remake of the original Star Fox / Star Fox 64. I think it's really more based off of Star Fox 64 than the original Star Fox, but they've obviously updated the models for the characters and redid the voice acting, re-recorded everything with that. There's the basically they made all of the character models look more like actual animals versus like the more polygonal models that they had in both Star Fox and Star Fox 64 and like Star Fox Zero and that sort of thing. But yeah, it looks like they've added some additional modes. Like they added some additional stuff with the multiplayer that I think wasn't in the original. It looked like they had an underwater level, which I don't remember being in the original, but maybe I'm remembering incorrectly on that, or maybe I just never unlocked that portion. But then they also added a prologue where you get to play as Fox's father, James. And I'm trying to think of what else there was. There's mouse controls, with the Joy-Con. You can use the Joy-Con mouse. This is Switch 2 exclusive. It's not going to be on the original Switch. The price for it is going to be $60. I think it's $60 for the physical and $50 for the digital, if I remember correctly. It might be $60-$70.
Yeah. No, it's $60-$50.
Okay, so So yes, I have a lot to say about, well, technically a lot to say about the game itself, but I want to hear your thoughts.
Man, so Nintendo, I mean, granted, we had already been talking about the potential of Star Fox being included in the Super Mario Galaxy movie, just being as sort of a teaser for the Star Fox remake, which, lo and behold, we got the remake. So that definitely was accurate on that end. And I'll admit, I think this game looks great. I think, how they've designed it is good. The one thing I would say is I'm not really too fond of the character model redesigns. I think there's a bit of an uncanny valley where they're like, all right, you've got animals looking kind of realistic as, anthropomorphic beings. And so I'm just like, it looks kind of weird to me. But I mean, everything else, though, looks nice. I think the design looks good. I think the gameplay looks amazing. I love, how it's designed. I appreciate the fact that they're re-recording everything and they're getting everything redesigned. And, this is a full-on remake. I appreciate them adding in the mouse supports with the Joy-Con, so that way you have better aiming. And I can understand why they made this switch to exclusive. Although I do, I the way the game looked in the trailer, I can definitely see why it wasn't on the Switch one. At least not without heavy compromise. Because I think, you would probably almost bring this at maybe like 30 if you're trying to get that on the Switch one hardware, possibly. So I can understand that. And I do appreciate, although I understand why they did set the game at $60 instead of doing $70, because I feel like they might be trying to revive the Star Fox brand, but Star Fox doesn't have enough hype around it to actually support them charging that much money. Like Nintendo spent time cultivating Metroid before they felt confident with charging $70 for Metroid Prime 4 on the at least on the Switch 2 version. Star Fox hasn't had that cultivation yet, and additionally, the last time they released a Star Fox game, it essentially flopped. So, charging $70 would be suicide at this point. So I understand why they did it, and even though it's more so because they don't want the game to be a failure, it's definitely better on the consumer end to not have to pay that much money for a game, especially even if it is a remake. A game that's been out 4 times, 3 previous times essentially. Having that be $7 would be insane. But of course, as you said before, it is cheaper if you buy it digital, which is something we've discussed previously with how Nintendo has structured that, which is good, since you don't have to worry about manufacturing costs and all that. Did we also get a concrete release date for this?
Yes, I think it's June 9th, maybe. I know it's June.
Okay, then yeah. And that's another thing too, is the fact that Nintendo released this game, or announced this game, like right before it's being released, which is definitely a first for them. I mean, normally they at least have, maybe some months ahead of time before the game releases that they announce something, but the fact that they announced it a month ahead is just very different for them. And I would even argue it's different for a lot of game developers in general. You don't just announce a game and say, hey, we're essentially shadow dropping this. I mean, granted, they did that with Metroid Prime Remastered, but just in general, that's not something they do. So I think this is good. I agree with you that unless I didn't unlock that path, I do not recall the underwater section. So if that is new, I think that's great that they're adding that in there. I know we talked about this before. I kind of still would have liked to have seen some out of the R-Wing action, like in Assault. But maybe if, Star Fox 60, if the remake does well, maybe they might try to, go back to those old ideas if they make another game. Although, considering the fact that the original version is essentially just lost media anyway, maybe they'll just remake Star Fox 2. Because, the only way to play that game is on the SNES Classic, because that game never released. So that's a game that probably should be getting remade, since that one never even saw the light of day to begin with. So who knows? If this one does well, we might get Star Fox 2 remake, and that should be interesting to say the least. But those are my thoughts on things.
So this one is one where I'm super mixed on it. Now, I actually don't mind the change in the character models. Like, I would be perfectly fine if they had kept them more, true to the original instead of going for that uncanny valley kind of thing. But I also don't hate the fact that they changed it. And so my big thing, like, I loved when I'd never played the original Star Fox or 64 until after I played Star Fox 64 3D, and I ended up loving that a lot. Like, I really truly loved it. And it's definitely one where, I look at this and I see, I love the idea of it, and I think it looks gorgeous. Visuals in general look gorgeous. I'm sure the controls are going to be better, even if you don't do the mouse controls, which I probably wouldn't do the mouse controls anyway, just because of the fact that Joy-Con is so uncomfortable as a mouse. It might be easier in this game because it's on rails than it was in Metroid Prime 4. But I do like, I would assume that probably you could just use the second stick for that aiming as well, and potentially even gyro. So I'll have to take a look at that whenever I actually eventually play this, because I do want to get it eventually. I'm just not sure if I want to spend $60 on it, because I would rather have it physical. But I'm kind of more like, okay, if the physical was $50, I'd probably be willing to go for it. $60 is a little more than I want to spend for a game that I'm not like, I need to have this right now, Especially because I know, even though you can do a bunch of runs-throughs, it's very short, there's different challenges that they added that didn't exist in the original game, and or at least I don't think they did. I guess they might have in a different, separate challenge mode. Maybe I'm wrong on that, but the reality is it's still, overall, is technically a very short game. It's a very good game. At least the originals were very good, especially 64 and 64 3D. And Zero, I never actually played. I do have it. I bought it like a couple years ago, bought it used. I was kind of under the impression that Zero was like almost a remake of 1 and 2 combined. Maybe I could be totally wrong on that though. But in many ways it was, from my understanding, sort of a remake of 64 already. Just with, extra stuff added and, using the gimmicks of the gamepad and that sort of thing. Did you ever play Zero?
I played a little bit of it, probably only about the first 2 levels.
Okay.
And the first one definitely is like when you play through initially with Star Fox 64. Like it's the same level. I think somewhere in that level, that's where they added one of the new like little mini robot that moves around stuff.
That's
but for
right.
the most part, it was pretty much like the same of the first level.
But yeah, so just looking at all of this, like I think that there's enough about it to where it would be a technically worthwhile purchase. I just think $60 is a little too much for a physical version. $50 is too much for the digital version. And granted, I did spend $40 on the 3DS version to buy it digitally back in the day. But that was also back in the day when I had a lot fewer game options. So back then it was like, okay, you know, I didn't have as many choices. I didn't have as many things available to me. I really wanted to play it. And of course I was a Nintendo fanboy. So at that time, it wasn't that big of an issue for me. But today I'm like, is it really worth it for me to do that? You know, and as much as like, I do really, truly love Star Fox 64, I'm just not sure if it's worth it enough to do that in this case. And I think that it's probably just going to be something that I wait till there's a price discount. You know, like if they drop the price for the holiday or something, I would probably grab it. But otherwise, I'm like, yeah, I'm not so sure about that. But yeah, I'm trying to think if there's anything else to note. I guess one thing is that if there is, of course, multiplayer, I think both local and online. And with online multiplayer, you can have your avatar as one of the Star Fox characters, and then it will make the character will move. Will have expressions that go along with yours, assuming you're using a camera. So that's kind of like okay, I guess that's kind of cool if you like doing that sort of thing. Your 2 frames per second camera thing that comes through on other people's screens. But yeah, as an overall thing, like, I understand why they decided to do a remake of 64. It is a good entry point for people and all of that, but it also would be kind of nice to see the series move forward. And I hope that this really is just like, okay, this is a good entry point. This is a way to get people introduced to Star Fox. June 25th is the release date. And so from that standpoint, like, hopefully it can actually get them to make more Star Fox games, because it really is. I mean, the games are good. They're just not. It's just most of them are all the same game. And I could see it being like with the Switch 3 or whatever their next console is, they do yet another Star Fox remake, unless this one actually does well enough to where they feel like they can actually move the series forward and do new games. I could also honestly see them taking the opportunity to finally port Star Fox Zero over to Switch and Switch 2, to actually get that to sell something. I mean, yeah, there's obviously the challenges that come with the fact that you don't have the gamepad, but theoretically you could just have it like it's a button press to switch views. Because, like, as an example, for one, like, when I did the little bit of Switch emulation, Wii U emulation I did on the Steam Deck, I was able to just press one of the back buttons to switch to the gamepad screen, like when I was trying out Wind Waker. But also, like, when I was playing Star Fox 64, the PC version, I was able to switch to first-person view and then switch out of first-person view just by, I think, pressing in one of the sticks. And I don't even remember if the original Star Fox 64 had a first-person view. I'm guessing it did, and I just never used it because I didn't know about it. But yeah.
Yeah, that's the one thing I would say is really iffy, just because I don't know, just because the game at its core is kind of the same. It's like porting a different version of the same game, even though it controls differently, and does have, the different mechanics and stuff and features.
Yeah,
I just don't know if they would find it worth their time to do it. But it would be interesting if they did do that, though.
Yeah.
Although,
sorry, go ahead.
Oh no, I was just saying. Although, one thing they could do, which wouldn't really cost them a whole lot of effort, would just be to port Adventures and Assault to NSO. Like,
yeah,
they're both GameCube games, and they've got that set up for the Switch too. So just port those games, and that's like another entry point for people to get into the game and to get into the series.
Sure. I'm just waiting for the decomps. especially for
Yeah.
adventure, because like, I mean, there is a decomp of Dinosaur Planet, but I think the game was not actually complete anyway, so instead of it being, the full game that Star Fox Adventure, I mean, that it became when it became Star Fox Adventure, yeah, I would like to check that out, because I've never actually played Star Fox Adventure. It's like, I played 64 3D, and then I played the originals, at least portions of the original 64. I don't think I ever finished it. And then I played the original Star Fox. But I have basically haven't played anything beyond that. One thing that I do think I will probably end up doing sometime in the not too distant future would be trying to see, well, not really trying to see, but emulating Star Fox Zero on the Steam Deck. The only thing I'm not sure about is whether or not it would be possible to get 60 FPS, because I know when I tried to do Wind Waker HD, not because of a problem with power, but because the way the emulation was, it was not possible to do above 30. It was just stuck at a locked 30. So, and I'm guessing Star Fox Zero is probably at 30. So, I don't know. But I would like to play that someday, because it's like I bought it, and I mean, I could pull out the Wii U and do it that way, but do I really want to? No. I mean, if I found that the experience was basically exactly the same, I might do it at some point, just pull it out of the box and plug it in and stuff, but like, it just seems like it would make more sense to just play it on the Steam Deck, where I don't have to have two separate screens that way, and I can just enjoy it that way. But I'll have to look more into that, see what is actually possible. So, but yeah, I don't think I really have any other thoughts on that.
Same here.
All right. Well, I'll let you pick out which topic you want to discuss next.
Oof. Oh man, these are both good. I guess I will. Ugh. All right, yeah. So let's talk about the supposed price of the Steam machine. Now, according to Moore's Law is dead, the Steam machine could possibly be cheaper than what we've come to expect. Now, of course, Valve has said that they are pricing the Steam machine as a PC and not as a console. But according to what he's saying, it actually could be cheaper within the $600-$650 range, which is definitely cheaper than what a lot some people were expecting, especially with consoles getting closer to $1,000. People are expecting this to be roughly around within that range as well, like $900, which a lot of people rightfully think that would be crazy and would just cause the Steam machine to be DOA. But additionally, though, according to leaks, there are 4 SKUs for the Steam machine, where there are 4 different models, and it looks like 2 of these are just different, or the core of these are two models with different storage units, so 512 gigs and 2 terabytes of storage. And the crazy thing is that the other 2 SKUs are the same as far as storage, but they don't include a controller, which is weird. And then the Steam Frame also has 2 SKUs, just again different storage capacity. Now I've got several different thoughts on all of these different aspects, but what are your thoughts on the matter?
Well, as much as I want Moore's Law is dead to be correct on the pricing, I highly doubt that's the case. And honestly, I don't think, I mean, he really doesn't have the best track record. Like, I know that a lot of PlayStation fans in particular tend to consider him to be really reliable, especially when it comes to talking about PlayStation and, all of that. But for me, it's like, I look at, I've seen enough examples of him being wrong to where I just remain very, very skeptical that he would be correct about any of this. And so it's definitely one of those where it's just going to be kind of a wait and see situation. But I don't know. I will say that, the idea that there's 4 different SKUs and that, obviously the 2 different storage sizes, then one comes with a controller, the other doesn't, depending on which one you decide to go for. Like, I can see why that would be the case, and I'm like back and forth on it myself on whether I would want to buy one with a controller or not. I probably would. More just because I feel like that would end up being better overall as a value. And also because of the fact that if I'm getting it mostly for my kids, it's like, I'm not going to let them use my Steam controller. So it would make more sense to just get them one with a Steam controller. But the price also is going to make a big difference in whether I go for the cheaper, the lower storage size or the larger storage size, because while, on the one hand, if storage prices were normal, it wouldn't be that expensive to upgrade the storage. Right now, storage prices are not normal. They're very expensive. And so it's like, okay, is it worth it? Or should I just, shell out a little bit of extra money and do that? Or should I go with the cheaper model, and then when storage prices drop down again, then I can upgrade the storage? And that's really what it comes down to, is like, what's going to be the best course of action from that standpoint. And of course, the price of the system in general is also going to make a big difference as it stands, regardless of, the cheapest model versus the more expensive model. And so there's that. Of course, is there going to be some sort of bundle with the Steam frame? That's another thing that, we have yet to see whether or not that's going to be the case. If they're going to do the Steam frame as a separate release entirely, which they may very well do. In fact, I would say more likely than not, that's going to be the case. But then that brings up the question, okay, well, if they're doing them as separate, separate release for the machine and the frame, are they going to, at the time that they do the frame release, have a bundle? Or would they make it so that if you already own the Steam machine and you want the quote-unquote bundle price, you get a discount for having already bought the Steam machine? Because, they do that with, like, game bundles, that if you want to buy a bundle and you already own games in that bundle, then you get a discount because you're not having to pay for the games that you already have. So there's a lot of different questions that go into that, but ultimately, as far as price goes, I'm just going to err on the side of, I think it's going to be more expensive than Moore's Law is Dead is saying. I hope he's correct, though. It would be great if he was, because, $600 for the cheaper model, that would be a fantastic price. That would be way better than I expected. And it would definitely show Valve being very pro-consumer in their way of setting up the price. Knowing that customers who buy it are going to buy a bunch of games, most likely. And those who don't aren't going to buy a bunch of games because they have the Steam machine. Probably already have a bunch of games, and they'll create more loyal customers who want to keep buying stuff from them in the future. And so it's like there's so many different facets to it, and I hope that Valve just continues their track record of being extra pro-consumer in their approach with this. And if they can actually pull off as low of a price as Moore's Law is Dead is claiming, it would be truly fantastic for us as consumers. And either way, I'm anxious to see what they're going to do with this. The hard part for me is going to be, like, not just if I were to get it at launch, not just playing with it myself and actually setting it up for my kids to use, because it's like, I don't need it. I have a laptop that basically is going to do the same power, if not a bit better, because I think mine has more RAM. But then also, I wanted to get it so the kids would have another option for playing PC games outside of just using their desktop. So that way they can all play PC games at the same time instead of fighting over it all the time. So, yeah. That's it for my thoughts.
Yeah, I I agree. I'm really just on hopium right now. I'm really on hopium, hoping that Moore's Law is correct about this, because, like you said, while he's been right about some things, he's also been wrong about some things, and because of that, his track record can be a bit arguable. So I'm hoping that this is a case where he is actually right about this, because a $600 Steam machine would be great. I think it's something that would really help sell the console, sell the device, because if you have it higher than, like, say, $800, you're really gonna be hard pressed to get people to buy this, because at that point it's like, okay, I could either buy a console that has more power, or I could just build my own PC that will be more powerful than this, or even better yet, I could just buy a pre-built that could be similarly spec'd and be a little better than this. So it's and even if they buy even if they say buy a pre-built that is, pretty much the same as this one, they can still upgrade it in the future. You can't do that with a Steam machine. So Valve really has to look at it from, like, hey, okay, you say you want to price like a PC, well, think about what similar spec PCs cost, and some of them could be arguably cheaper than what you're selling it for. So there's that. Now, I am not. I think I'm really hoping that they don't. I mean, it might be weird to say this, but I really hope they don't have 4 different versions that do and do not have a controller. I think if you're buying this thing, it should come by default with a controller, because who buys any type of console and it doesn't have a controller? Like, I mean, sure, technically you could say, well, because it's a PC, you can just, use any controller, and I get that. I do get that, but at the same time, that would still require you to go out and buy that thing separately. If you buy any console, it comes with a controller. Sure, you might need to buy more if you want more people to play, but it still comes with something to get you started with it. And even if you buy a pre-built PC, they might have cheap mice and keyboards that come with them, but they still have mice and keyboards that work and to get you started. You don't have to go out and buy extra hardware. So for that reason, I think they really should have it included and not have it as some sort of extra thing that costs more. I think that's ridiculous. I think if you're buying something like that, you should have a means to actually use it included in there. Like, it's like buying a TV and not having a remote control. Like, I think that's ridiculous. So I hope that information is false and the extra SKUs are really just more so like additional bundles with, the Steam frame, or like, say, 2 models are with the Steam frame, and maybe like with an extra controller or something like that, and then it's just like the other ones are just the cheaper version. I mean, the less storage model and the more storage model. Like, I think that would be best overall. Now, I really like what you said about the physical bundle, the Steam bundle that you have, similar to like with the games, how if you have one thing, it makes the other items cheaper. I think that's a good idea. And Valve could always come back and fix things, because they have updated things, especially with their listings on the store page. But I know as of right now, Valve currently has not kept track of or at least on the consumer side of things, they have not kept track of if you have bought a Steam controller or not. Obviously, they have said if you've purchased one before, you're not eligible to make a reservation for a Steam controller, and in their records, they'll count for that. But as far as on our side, we don't know if we've bought one or not, unless we obviously have purchased one. Like, for example, I've noted that in my Steam wishlist, even though I've purchased the Steam controller, it's still listed as being on my wish list, even though I've purchased it already. Additionally, unlike the Steam Deck, people who have bought the Steam controller, at least from what I've seen, like, it hasn't shown for me, and I haven't seen it happen, like, for you for as far as activity. It has not registered that anyone has purchased a Steam controller as well in like the Steam activity. So Valve could always come back and update that and show, hey, you've purchased a Steam controller, or that your friend has purchased a Steam controller and stuff like that. And if you purchased it, like games, it's removed from your wish list. But as of right now, it doesn't register that we've purchased it, so they would have to come back later and do an update and say, hey, you've purchased this, so because of that, you can get a discount for the Steam machine and the Steam frame as part of an overall bundle. Which, again, I think that's a brilliant idea. I think that works, especially if, even if you like buy something now and say, hey, maybe later I might want to get this later on. So that way it's like, oh, it's like a one-time thing. I might have to miss out on this, but it's like, if it's something you can come back to later on, it's like, all right, yeah, it's no big deal. I can go back and get this and be good. And I mean, it would be hard to do this, but if they could even do it how they've done it now with games, where if you say, hey, I want to gift this for someone, and because they have one of those items in the bundle, it's cheaper on their end to buy it for them, that would be nice to do that as well. So it would probably take a little more work on their end, but I think that's something that would be pretty neat to do for that. So I think that's a good idea to do a bundle in that sense. It might even maybe make things cheaper than just having a full setup custom thing. But yeah, I definitely like that idea. But all in all, though, I do hope that the Steam machine is definitely cheaper than what we've been led to believe so far. I think that's like the key thing.
Yeah.
And like we've also said last week, if the game consoles are the Steam machine, then hopefully we'll hear something soon, and then we'll hear something sooner as far as like when reservations are. And at least now that Valve has done the Steam controller, they do now know, hey, next time let's just do reservations and not do the craziness that happened with the initial Steam controller launch, because that was a mess.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's everything that I have to say.
Yeah, so I agree with you in part when it comes to to basically saying that they shouldn't do they shouldn't do a version of the Steam machine that doesn't include a controller. I see both sides of it. I think the positive of doing something like that would be if someone either doesn't want the Steam controller, or if they don't want the Steam controller because they just don't like the way it looks, or they already bought a Steam controller, or they just want to use the controllers they already have and save a little bit of money. Those could be reasons why they would do it that way. And theoretically, at least with the reservation system, that should help to not have a situation where it's like all the ones with controllers sell out and then people can't get the ones without control. I mean, people only have the option of getting the one without a controller. But of course, the potential bad side would be if all the ones with the controller sold out and then people who wanted to get it with the controller couldn't get a controller with it. But yeah, I mean, I guess something else that they could do very easily is like, if, for example, it was in a position where like all the ones that were bundled with controllers sold out and all that was left was ones without controllers, people could still buy the controller separately, and then maybe Valve would basically say, okay, you're getting the same price if you're buying it at the same time, like that you would get for buying them together. But on the other side, something else that I thought of, which I don't think they'll do, but it would be a smart idea if they did, would be like only offer the controller-less bundle to people who already bought the Steam controller. Be like, or be like, say, you basically just say, hey, we see that you already bought a Steam controller. Do you want this one without a Steam controller? Or, but just as an option, not saying you have to buy it without the Steam controller, but that you have the option. I think that could be nice for people. I don't think that's what's going to happen. I think there's just going to be that it's going to be you have the option of either getting the console or the Steam machine on its own, or you have the option of getting it with a controller, and there's just a price difference depending on which way you go. But yeah, I mean, like, I think you have a very valid point. I'm just wondering, like, I'm also just looking at it as there could be any number of reasons why people wouldn't want to get it with a controller. And so there can be valid reasons to actually offer it without. I mean, like, if you think about it as well, like with the Switch, there are lots of people who would have happily bought it without a dock. People who would have bought it, or, would have bought a version that wasn't portable, that was just a home console version, but Nintendo never offered that sort of thing. I know that, like, when I got my second Switch, for example, I already had a second dock because I had bought a second one so that I would have one for my bedroom and then one for the living room. And I mean, I just bought it used separately, but like, I didn't really want a third dock, and I didn't have the choice in the matter. So I went with what I had to go with. And, like right now, not counting the third party dock I have, I think 4 docks right now, and I have 3 Switches. Cause I have the one that came with the original OLED, which my wife uses for hers. Then there's both the one that came with the original Switch and the secondary one that I bought for the original Switch. And then there's also the one that came with the refurbished Switch OLED that I bought, which isn't even the OLED dock, unfortunately, but I was like, I'm not even going to use it anyway, so it doesn't really matter that much. And it was a lot cheaper to buy the refurbished one than it was to buy a brand new one. Plus, I didn't have to give any money to Nintendo to do that. But yeah, I don't know. I think I can see both sides on this, and I think that it's good to have the option. I just hope that it doesn't end up biting them in the butt in terms of people who want it with the controller not being able to get it with the controller, or at least not having a way to get a controller to go with it. I think that it should definitely come with a controller if people want the controller. But I think it's also good for people to have the option to get it without the controller if they don't want the controller. So that's just my thought.
That's actually that is a good point that you brought up, and it also reminded me that technically Valve has done this before. I noticed at least when I was initially trying to consider getting one of these from them, but they did this with the Index, where they've sold all the different parts of the Valve Index, in addition to having a full complete version where you have everything together. And of course, as they've phased out the Valve Index, they've stopped having parts available or different components available, but they have done that. And I can see now, if you only want or need one thing, then it does make sense to just get that rather than getting the bundle, and it could be cheaper. Yeah. So I do understand that, but I think still they should try to make sure there are as many of those people who can get one bundled, so that way if they're getting it into there all together, trying to get started with, just getting into a PC game, or at least with Steam, then that would be easier for them rather than having to get the console and then try to get the controller separately, or whatnot. Although, again, since it's a PC, you can use any controller with it. But just as far as the simplicity of plugging in and getting things started, having the native controller would help a lot.
For sure. All right. Any other thoughts on that topic?
No, sir.
All right. So, speaking of the Nintendo Switch, since we were talking about the situation with that and the options and everything else along with it, the Nintendo Switch has officially been confirmed to be getting a price increase. And I believe that's not happening until July, if I'm not mistaken. I don't have the article pulled up right now. Actually, let me find that real quick because I know you sent that information to me.
September 1st, actually.
September 1st, okay. So, let me just quickly bring up the prices here so I'm giving accurate information. All right, so the Nintendo Switch 2, and as far as I can, this is only prices for the version that does not include an additional game with it. Or that doesn't include Mario Kart or any other game with it. In the US, the Switch 2 is going from $449.99 to $499.99, so the same price that it would be normally for getting it with the Mario Kart bundle. So presumably the Mario Kart bundle would be, that additional $50 on top of that. In Canada, it's going from $629.99 to $679.99. In Europe, it's going from $469.99 to $499.99. Keep in mind that both Canada and Europe, those I believe have higher value in general, or well, Canada, the value is actually technically, I think it's pretty similar, but the actual dollar amount is different because I think their dollar's worth a little bit less than ours. Maybe I'm wrong on that. I know those things have fluctuated over the years, but I know euros are worth more than dollars. So regardless, it's basically going up $50 a piece in both the US and Canada, so in North America, and then it's going up by 30 euros in Europe. And that's effective as of September 1st, 2026. And Nintendo President Shigeru Furukawa has apologized to people saying, "We're sorry for this price increase, but there's going to be a bunch of games to make up for it," essentially. So, what are your thoughts on this?
Well, this is obviously just another nail in the coffin of games getting cheaper as generations go by. And of course, obviously, the Switch 2 hasn't been out for a long time like the PS5 and Xbox Series X, but we're still in the first year of the Switch 2 and the price is going up, which is not a good sign of things. And, obviously, if you were an early adopter, you got, a better deal. I say deal, but it just sucks if you're trying to say, hey, I do not want to get a Switch right now. Either, my finances aren't in a position where I can afford to get one, or I don't think it's a good value right now, and I'll wait until there's a deal or there's a cheaper price and I'll get one. If you were in either of those two camps, essentially, then it's like, well, now what? Because either, well, now it's even more expensive than I originally had been hoping, or B, I thought it wasn't a good value before. Now I think it's even horrible value now that it's gone up. So that's a really horrible thing there, obviously. And sure, you can say, Furukawa said that he hopes that there will be games that make up for this, but and he also said that even with the Switch 2 price hikes, it isn't covering the cost of manufacturing them. And I'm just like, well, what does that say about the games, though? Are you going to raise the price of the games? Are you going to have more $80 games then? I feel like $70 is definitely going to start being more of a baseline. And, like I said earlier with Star Fox, if it wasn't for the fact that Star Fox has had a very rocky past, especially since Star Fox Zero did not do well, that one would have been $70. So I think for the more popular titles, $70 is going to be a baseline across the board. And if they can get $80 like they did with Mario Kart World, then they're going to do $80.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's something we're going to definitely see more of if they're going to try to say, hey, the games will cover the costs that the console cost price increase won't be able to do. That's what we'll be seeing there. But I think also another thing that was crazy is the fact that Nintendo Switch Online, or at least in Japan, is going up. Because I'm like, all right, so I can understand the argument of saying because the cost of manufacturing is getting higher, we have to raise the price of the hardware.
Mm-hmm.
Why are you raising the price of an online service? Like, there's no hardware whatsoever, so why are people going to have to pay more? I think that is definitely the weird thing. I mean, of course, they also raised the price of the playing cards, and of course, those are actually physical things. But with a digital service, like, come on, guys, come on. But yeah, this definitely stinks. And it's gonna be messy. I mean, of course, this will probably incentivize people to buy the combo versions or the bundled versions with the game, saying like, okay, before, I would have to pay extra $50 and I'd get a game to go with it. It's like, well, I might as well just buy the bundled version. It's the same price as the regular version, unless Nintendo later down the line says, well, to help make up some more costs, we're gonna raise the price of the bundled version by $50. And so now it's like, okay,
well, I'm sure, I mean, they didn't say, but I'm guessing that it is going up at the same time. That it's just basically that the base version is going up $50, which in turn means that the bundled version will also go up $50.
I would hope not.
I mean, because otherwise they'd just be giving away a free game, basically. They're not going to do that.
I mean, but granted, things are not the same. But if you thought about it, once the certain consoles got down to the price, at least with the Wii U, you did essentially get a free game with the games, because like they had the Super Mario 3D World that was the same price as the normal standalone Wii U. So it's
but this is not the Nintendo of 2015 to 2017.
That's also true. But we are seeing, though, like, at least in Japan, that retailers are panicking because people are panic buying. And I mean, I do understand that because of the fact that the prices are going to be going up, people want to get one now before they're more expensive. But now we've got stores, restricting purchases because it's like, all right, we don't want to run out of inventory now. And it's just harder to get, more units. So it's like, yeah, this is definitely a messy situation. So I think you definitely played the long game by, buying when you did, getting your Switch 2. But I really don't have too much more to say other than this definitely stinks, and it's something that I wish we were not having to discuss.
Yeah. I mean, the biggest thing about this is that I firmly believe that they're not going to lower the prices even when RAM prices stabilize. When everything gets back to the way it was, they're not going to lower the prices. It's just going to stay up there. And I mean, like I've discussed this with some other people, and I mean, some said like some people have said that they think that PlayStation will not be lowering their prices even when things change, because they want to incentivize people to get the PlayStation 6. But they think that Nintendo will lower the prices, and I'm just like, no. I mean, this is the company that raised the price of their original Switch 8 years after it came out and never had a price drop before that. So it's like, I don't believe they're going to lower the price. I think that this is going to be the new price, and I think this was probably always the plan, even if the RAM crisis hadn't happened. I think they were always planning to increase the prices because they know they can. And I mean, from what I understand, consoles across the board haven't been selling great as of late, even before the price increases, or at least the most recent ones. Not that they've been selling terribly, they just haven't been selling as well as they did in the past. And it's like, yeah, imagine that. You don't lower the price of your console and then you just increase it, not once, but twice in some cases, or 3 times, technically. I wonder why people aren't buying it, but all that being said, like, I don't think anyone should panic buy on this. This, or I mean, obviously it's too late now for the PS5 and the PS5 Pro, but this is just what they're going to do going forward. This is their new practice. And as much as I hope I'm proven wrong. I hope that things actually go back to more normal things. They lower prices and then they actually start lowering prices every gen instead of increasing prices every gen. But I just don't think that's going to happen. I think that it's not realistic anymore because especially now that, they're getting people buying less and less games, and these first party games aren't even selling super well, especially on the PlayStation side. Considering the install size of the platform, and these things are supposedly system sellers, but they just don't sell very well overall, especially for the really big budget games, which most of them are. From that standpoint, like it's more understandable why they would just increase the prices. And I'm not defending them because I think it's still scummy. But I also see, I look at these price increases and I think this is going to be the norm going forward. They're trying to incentivize people to buy the things earlier. And then, of course, they'll do the thing to make people panic buy. And in some cases, it will work. I mean, it does work. People get FOMO and then they decide to do that. And, with seeing these price increases throughout the gen, I'm sure that a lot more people are going to be like, next gen, they're going to be buying the consoles as close to launch as possible, even if they have to go into debt to do it, because they don't want to have to miss out on the lower price, the quote-unquote lower price, even if it is very expensive. Now, talking more specifically about the Switch 2, and of course the fact that I, bought mine at launch. I mean, I know that if I hadn't bought mine at launch, I probably would be even less inclined to buy one. Now, yes, I have it. I had really planned on selling it, wasn't having any luck doing that, and so I ended up not selling it. And, like, I don't totally regret having it, but I think I'm also just in a different stage in life, and where the Switch, the original Switch was, like, new and different and was, like, the first real way for me to play these bigger games portably. Once the Steam Deck came out, the Switch lost a lot of its luster. And I still really like my Switch, especially the Switch OLED. And the Switch 2 is not a bad system, but there also hasn't been anything where it's been like, I need to have the Switch 2 for this, per se. I mean, Xenoblade Chronicles X, thankfully they did finally put out that update that bumped it up to 60 FPS and made it possible to do higher resolutions and all that for, playing on 1440p and 4K displays. Even if it is just upscaling, but there hasn't, and okay, yes, the boost mode I think is a nice feature that they added, but I still don't feel like the Switch 2 is something where it's not as exciting to me from the same standpoint. And it's really where I'm at in my life. Now, am I going to get rid of it? Probably not. I'm probably just going to hold on to it. But the thing is that even if I'm not getting rid of this one, it's highly unlikely I would buy a second one unless I got one for like super cheap. And even then, there'd have to be a good amount of stuff to really make it worthwhile. By the time it's in the position where there's enough stuff to make it quote unquote worthwhile and it's actually cheaper enough, by that point we'll probably have Switch 2 emulation. And then I might just be like, oh, maybe I'll just buy a game and then emulate it. And if not, if it plays well enough on the Switch 2, I'll probably just play it on there. But like, my kids haven't even been that interested in the Switch 2. Like, they basically use their Switch for Minecraft and Animal Crossing, and that's it. And they have the ability to play a lot of different games, and occasionally they'll play something else, but for the most part, like, they don't really use it for that. They're much more interested in playing on their PC, and I mean, I don't blame them. There's Minecraft is better on there, even though they can't really do multiplayer, which is one of the major reasons they still play on the Switch. And of course, my oldest is looking forward to getting a Steam Deck when he actually has enough money, because he's not quite there yet. He's only about halfway there, but yeah, it's just, this price increase was inevitable. We talked about this a long time ago, that it was going to happen eventually. It was just a question of when it was going to happen. And while I can understand to some degree the argument that $50, an additional $50 is not that big of a deal, at the same time, you give Nintendo an inch, like with any other company, they're going to take a mile. They're going to keep pushing it. And they'll do the $50 increase for now, and then 5 years from now, they'll increase it by another $50 or another $100. And they'll just blame market conditions, whatever those market conditions happen to be. Even when the Orange Man is gone from office, they'll find some other reason to increase the price, regardless of what that happens to be. So, yeah.
There's one thing that I did forget to mention earlier, and Nintendo says that they've got problems. They've got to make sure they can cover the costs of manufacturing. Well, there's one thing they've never tried, which they could try doing to help bring in that extra revenue, and that is port your games to PC. I mean,
it would work.
As we've been discussing,
it would work.
We've discussed it. We've had decomp after decomp after decomp of Nintendo games, native PC ports. Nintendo could be doing this and making money.
They could be profiting off of every single one of these, and instead they're making Nathan.
Yes, it's showing that the market is there. The market is clearly there. Otherwise, people would not be doing this, especially for as long as they've been doing it. But they refuse to do so. It's not like they have to really do much of anything other way. It's like the infrastructure is already there set up for you. Just put your games on there. People will buy them. People will buy them in droves.
Yeah.
Like, there are so many people who probably would never even touch an emulator ever again, because they're like, why would I need to when I've got the native PC version right here?
Yep.
And if it's already supported through something like Steam, then it's like, hey, I've got the games right here. I've got the achievements. I've got controllers already available. And I mean, like, the Switch Pro controller and maybe the Switch Pro 2 controller, I don't know, they're already supported by Steam. So a lot of the work is already there for you.
Yep.
You just have to take advantage of it. Microsoft has dove right into that pool. PlayStation, Sony started doing it, and then they started getting a little funny with it. Maybe because, Xbox games can probably start playing PlayStation games, but they were doing some stuff there for a while. But Nintendo never even dipped their toes in. So it's like, hey, there's something here that you could be a part of, but you choose not to. And then you're still going to say, well, we have to find some ways to, make up for these costs. And it's like, there's an answer right there, guys.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, and that reminds me, one thing that I forgot to mention in response to one of the things you said was regarding the prices going up on games. Now, while I definitely wouldn't put it past them to raise prices again on games, I also think that is one thing they may hold off on a lot longer, at least, going any further than like $80 being the maximum. And even then they have to be really careful, I think. And I think it's because, honestly, at least the games that sell well, they're already making a profit on, like a significant profit, because their game development budgets without question, are significantly lower than what PlayStation is putting in for theirs, because they're not these big cinematic, humongous games that are, 80 plus gigs, and you have all the mocap and the voice acting and the cinematic stuff. You don't have to deal with that with Nintendo, and so their games are a lot cheaper to make. And so they probably are already making bank on those games, at least the ones that sell decently. Now, from the looks of it, like Metroid Prime 4, it wasn't even mentioned with their latest investor stuff, to where it probably hasn't even sold 1 million units, which is actually pretty bad. And there could be any number of reasons behind that. Some of it might be, people who didn't like the whole thing with Miles on there, that was, obnoxious, the millennial writing. It could just be, people didn't want to get it on the original Switch, or they didn't want to get it on this. They didn't have a Switch 2. Could be any number of reasons why people didn't buy it. I bought it, 100%ed it. I thought it was an okay game, but it definitely was not a good Metroid game. And although I did love the 120 FPS, that was fantastic. But, yeah, I look at the possibility of them raising prices, and while I do think it will probably happen eventually, I think that's something that's going to take quite a bit longer, because they're already making such a hefty profit probably on the games that actually sell, which is most of their first party stuff. At least like the bigger first party games are definitely selling better. The smaller first party games probably cost a lot less to make anyway, so even if they don't sell super well, they're not necessarily losing a lot, like that Drag and Drive game, the wheelchair basketball game that they did. It's just like gimmicky beyond gimmicks, and was just ridiculous. But that one, like, I doubt they made much of anything on that. They probably didn't sell much of anything on that. But also, it probably was pretty cheap to make, because it's not exactly a deep game. It's just a gimmicky game, and that's really all it is. Yeah. Anyway, let's move on. All right. You want to take this last topic?
All right. So we have a rumor that we could be getting another From Software game. So this was discussed on oh gosh, what was this NeoGAF, or was this well, I can't remember where this was discussed, but I'm trying to pull this up article here. But it was discussed that From Software is working on a new game that is supposedly coming out this year called Cerulean Assault, and this is a ocean or sea-based game that's there's not really much known about it, but this is going to be different, and you would be going to different islands and sort of exploring it. And there's one comment that was talking about this being sort of Aztec themed, which definitely is different from the more gothic fantasy Victorian England, or in the case, and also the gameplay would be akin to Sekiro, then compared with Dark Souls or Bloodborne.
Mm-hmm.
And then additionally, there is another, and this one is probably less credible than the Cerulean Assault, but there is a rumor floating around about a Dark Souls trilogy remake coming out in development. And this one's less credible just because the original post came from Twitter, X, and it was more so just a joke post that was made, but it seems like a whole lot of media outlets were running with it, just because the source in the post said it was a mirror source, more so like someone, your reflection in the mirror told you this.
Yeah.
So, but like I said, media outlets ran with this, and so they've been saying that that we've got Dark Souls trilogy remake coming. But regardless of that, what are your thoughts on both of these stories?
Well, I definitely find this idea of the pirate Souls-like thing very interesting. And it's so vastly different from what we've gotten from FromSoft in the past, to where I'm like, part of me thinks this is ridiculous. There's no way this is true. But then the other part of me is like, but FromSoft is just crazy enough to where I could see them doing something so drastically different. And I mean, it's supposed to be revealed at Summer Game Fest next month, is what they're saying, and then coming out in August, which is even crazier. If it's true, I'm day one. I mean, I just am. I can't help it. I have to be. I've become such a FromSoft fanboy. Even though I haven't played a ton of their games, I mean, everything that I've played of theirs has just been so good. Even Dark Souls 2, which is understandably the black sheep, and it isn't actually a Miyazaki game, it's still good, and it's just like, I like all their games that I've played. And yes, I haven't played all of them, but everything I played, even though a lot of them it's just portions of, apart from the 3 Dark Souls games, I've just enjoyed, and I really want to, if it's true, I'm in. Like, even Duskbloods, I keep looking at it side eye. I'm just like, there's a chance it might be worthwhile. I'm not sold on it yet because of the multiplayer only aspect. If I find out that there's a single player mode, then I'm probably in. And it's like, I already have the Switch 2. That would get me to play it. But if it's multiplayer, if it really is multiplayer only, then it's going to be very likely a no for me. But going back to this rumored game, I mean, like, I'm definitely taking it with a grain of salt, this idea behind it, just because of the fact that I just have no reason to really, like, be sure that this will actually happen. And also because of the fact that it would be so easy for someone to just make something up and then say it's going to happen. And of course, the fact that they can point to Summer Games Fest. Well, we know Summer Games Fest is coming up soon, so of course they're going to point to Summer Games Fest. And if they're wrong, I mean, what consequences are there? It was what, NeoGAF or something where they posted it in the first place. So, we'll have to wait and see. We got about a month. A little less than a month, and we should find out if this is even a thing. And either we'll just be like, yeah, that's pretty much what I figured, where it's not a thing at all, or we'll be pleasantly surprised at what it actually is. Now, regarding the Dark Souls trilogy remakes, this one, I mean, I'm definitely more skeptical of this one of the two, but at the same time, I'm also like, I guess it's possible. I mean, we did get that rumor a while back about Dark Souls 3 getting a remake, which we both thought really wasn't necessary by any stretch. But if they're going to if they remade all 3 games, as long as they did it properly, it could be worthwhile. Because, like, I wouldn't mind seeing 1 and 2 remade. I mean, I think that especially 2 still looks really good. And, like, I think, of course, Dark Souls 1, I love that game so very much. And of course, Dark Souls 3, I'm like, that one really doesn't need a remake at all, because it still looks great and plays great and everything. That one's the least dated of the 3, and of course, obviously, it's the newest of the 3. But I don't know, this is one of those, it's like, it's out in the ether, and I will believe it when I see it, and not any sooner than that. I don't have any faith that rumor is actually true. The other one, I'm like, okay, I could see this possibly being true, especially because we haven't gotten anything about new FromSoft games apart from Duskbloods, which, Switch 2 exclusive. And if this new game is supposed to be self-published and everything, as opposed to going through Bandai Namco, then that also, brings a lot of freedom for them to bring it wherever they want to bring it. So, I mean, obviously it would be day one, PC and elsewhere. If it did happen, if this trilogy happened, I would buy it immediately as soon as I had the ability to do so. And I would probably replay all 3 games back to back because, I mean, why not? But yeah, that one's definitely, I'm much more skeptical about that.
Yeah, I'm also hesitant to believe this game. I mean, like you said, it sounds so different and so crazy that it's like, I don't know, is this really true? But then when you think about some of the stuff that From Software has done, you're like, maybe this could be true. This is up there with them. And apart from Duskblood, of course, there's the Switch 2 ports for Elden Ring, but they haven't mentioned, like you said, they haven't mentioned anything new in a while. So it's like, all right, so what is next? What's next for you? And something independent, like this would be different. It would be new, and it would be interesting. And it also could be a way for them to do something that isn't even maybe completely even a Souls-like. I mean, this could be just maybe an action adventure type of game. So without necessarily being, that pure hardcore Dark Souls.
Yeah.
So I mean, it could still be like that, but it could be something for them to try something different. Sort of like how, even though there were some elements there, Armored Core 6 wasn't a Souls-like game. So that could be something for them to do something different. At the same time, though, obviously Miyazaki might still try to find a way, even though we're in the ocean, say, we've got to have our poison swamp somewhere out here. So it's like,
you have a poison spill, like the oil spills.
Yep. Yeah, it's just like this whole sea is just purely corrupted, and your ship's not gonna make it there. But I would be interested in seeing something happen here. Now, like you said, Dark Souls trilogy, I'm definitely skeptical on this one, whether it's gonna happen or not. And I'm gonna be honest, I would sacrifice the remake of this trilogy if it meant just getting Bloodborne remastered. I mean remake, because I feel like that game needs it. That game
just a native version for PC. No more emulation, just native version. That's all we want.
Yes, because I mean, at least Dark Souls remastered, Scholar of the First Sin and 3, they can at least do 60 FPS, and even on console can do a 60 FPS. Bloodborne is shackled outside of emulation to 30 frames per second, and it deserves better than that. So I would gladly sacrifice the trilogy being remade if it meant Bloodborne getting what it deserves. And then, of course, down the road we can talk about getting the trilogy remade, and I would still take that. But at least for right now, just give us that at least. Because I feel like that desperately needs it more because of the limitations that it has. But I'm not saying that I wouldn't play the trilogy if it was remade. I would definitely go back and do that. But yeah. But I do believe, though, that it's unlikely. But if it happens, I would not be upset about it whatsoever.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah, should be interesting to see what happens with all this, one way or the other. But, I mean, at least if the rumor about this new game is true, well, we don't have long to wait to find out.
Yes.
And, I mean, it's not like, if this whole thing is false, it's not like we have a shortage of games to play, even FromSoft games to play. I mean, like, I think about, like, the FromSoft games I have to play, even completely discounting, like, the older Armored Core games or any of the Kingsfield games. I have Sekiro, I have Bloodborne, I have Armored Core 6, I have Elden Ring, and assuming I don't play the Duskbloods, that's, I mean, I have 4 full games not counting, in addition, replays of any of the Dark Souls games, which I probably would replay 2 and 3 to get the remaining achievements. But, yeah, like and then that's, of course, even separate from FromSoft games, I have plenty of other Souls-likes to play. So, in fact, it's funny, before we left home, I installed a couple Souls-likes on my laptop with the idea maybe I'll jump into one or both of these just to mess with them. One of them being just Sekiro, getting back to that, and then the other one being Lords of the Fallen, because I've heard really good things about that, and I've been kind of itching to try it out, but yeah, anyway, that's way off topic. Or relatively, anyway. All right, anything else before we close out for the night?
No, sir.
All right, let's get into our recommendations and dissuasions. Why don't you start us off?
All right, so my first recommendation is going to be the Steam controller. This thing is great. It's definitely, I would say, going to be my new main controller for PC, just because it not only does everything your standard controller does, but it takes the best aspects of the Steam Deck and just allows you to play them on your PC, and also improves a lot of the problems I have had with using a controller for certain games, just because having those trackpads make a huge difference. And even though I still think it's kind of janky to a degree, it's fine even just to use that controller as a mouse and keyboard for regular desktop stuff.
Yeah.
No, I'm not saying I would do it, but just for like light stuff, especially if you're just doing some slight navigation,
right?
It works
sure.
well enough. So I definitely recommend the Steam controller if you can get one right now, especially with the reservations. But yeah, definitely recommend that. And then my other recommendation is going to be the YouTube channel PC Builder. I first found about him just for trying to figure out how to update the BIOS for one of my motherboards, but he regularly posts different PC part deals, so like different stuff over GPUs, CPUs, motherboards, even RAM like that for occasion. And a lot of times he'll find some good bundles for stuff. So I think he's the reason why I even found the deal for the motherboard I just bought. So I definitely recommend his channel. Even if you don't watch some of the videos, he does have YouTube posts where he'll link different bundles or different deals. So I definitely recommend checking him out.
All right. Good stuff. Well, for my recommendations, first of all, I'm going to recommend, if you play Pragmata, after you finish the game, play through the unknown signal mode that becomes available, because while it is an additional, some additional challenges, it is worth doing simply for the fact that you get the true ending of the game if you complete it all. If you really are just like over it at the end of the game and you found the final boss so frustrating that you don't ever want to do it again, which I could understand, especially if you're just not used to dealing with difficult fights like that, then at the very least look up the true ending, because really it's just like you have all the main ending and the true ending are almost identical, but then there's like something that happens post credits that doesn't happen in the original ending. So that's really the major difference, but it's still worth it in my opinion. My second recommendation is, if you have a difficult time sleeping at night, something that can be really helpful is listening to white noise of some kind. In my case, like at home, we have an air purifier that we run at night. And the one thing that has presented a problem for me is that anytime I have been at a hotel or anything else, if I can't have like the AC running or something else like that, to where there's that white noise in the background, it's just too quiet. And I have a really hard time sleeping without that. So then like last year, I ended up just looking up like, rainstorms listening to that while I was sleeping here at my in-laws' house. And this year I was like, I might as well just look and see if I can find a noise of an air purifier. And sure enough, I found one, and it made it so that our night in the hotel on our way here and the nights that we've been sleeping here at the house have been a lot better sleep than they were otherwise, because it's just way too quiet without it. I'm so used to it, and I definitely sleep better than I do without it. So that's my recommendation. All right, dissuasions.
My dissuasion is going to be do not get into small form factor PCs with current CPUs right now. At least with AMD's AM5 gen. Everything else is pretty much fine, but those motherboards, those mini ITX, they are just really expensive. And you can get a pretty decent micro ATX or a regular ATX motherboard for the same price as one of those, and even better. So I definitely would recommend not getting one of them. Like I said, the smallest you could probably do would be micro ATX, because those are still decent. You can get decent prices for those and even find some decent bundles for them. But it's harder to find that with mini ITX, and there aren't even really too many options for those anyway, so it's like even hard pressed. Like if you go back a couple generations at least with AM4, it can be more reasonable. You can get stuff around the $130 price range, but with mini ITX for AM5 motherboards, those are going to be at least upwards of $200 and more. So it's like, yeah, that's not, you can get better ATX boards for that price. So yeah, do not get mini ITX or small form factor PCs as for right now, and wait until things get better.
All right. Well, my dissuasions, first of all, I'm going to say, gosh, I didn't write it down, and it was, all right, well, if it comes to mind, I'll bring it up in a little bit, but the things I did write down, first of all, I'm going to dissuade you from adding milk to your eggs to make them more fluffy, because that is a mistake that I have seen people make over the years, and something I used to do when I was much younger. But once I discovered that eggs don't need milk added to them to be fluffy, you can easily make them fluffy just by cooking them properly, not cooking them at too high of a temperature. It makes a big difference. And the main thing that brought this up was just the fact that the hotel we stayed at, they had breakfast included, and their eggs, they definitely had put milk in them. And it's like, yeah, they were very fluffy, but they were also like super leaky, I guess you could say. And not like they were undercooked or anything. It was just that like I'd put some in a breakfast burrito, and it just made the tortilla soggy. And I ended up just I had, made one for breakfast that morning, and then I had also taken some extra, put it in another tortilla to have lunch later, because I figured, I paid for this, I might as well go ahead and get some extra. And then, but we didn't actually like really eat lunch until we made it to the house. And then at that point, the tortilla was like super soggy. So I scooped the stuff out, got a fresh tortilla, and then, it was, and then warmed it up, and it was, much, much better, because warming it up got rid of a lot of the excess moisture. But yeah. My second dissuasion is going to be whole pizzas from Maverick gas stations. I'm a big fan of their breakfast burritos. The breakfast burritos are stellar. I've recommended them in the past, and they're still excellent. Individual slices of pizza are probably fine, but the whole pizza, at least for me, was just mediocre. Like, the crust was really good, but like I asked for extra sauce, and either they didn't read the order, or they didn't quite, their definition of extra sauce was much different from mine, because it had very little sauce, and I'm a person, you got to have a lot of sauce on pizza. That's I must have, particularly with the marinara sauce. So, and then of course the toppings were just kind of like, they were just bleh. Like pretty much every pizza I've had from every other place has been better. And it wasn't like it wasn't bad. It just was mediocre. And it's a shame because the crust was great, but everything else was just very mediocre. So, pizza from Maverick is a dissuasion. And I don't remember what my last thing was, so I'll just leave it at that. All right. Where can people find you?
They can find me on my channel. I am Xeracon. That's IAMXERACON. So youtube.com/@IamXeracon. Should be tomorrow, or well, it'll be out by the time the podcast goes live. But I will have a video with the full unboxing of the Steam controller, as well as my full initial thoughts on the Steam controller, as well as showing some footage of me playing the games I mentioned earlier, with footage of the Steam controller as well, so you can see that. And like I said, overall, I think it's a great device. But like I said before, like last week, don't pay scalper prices. Do not pay more than $100 because it's still a pricey device, but it's still definitely worth getting. I think it's definitely a solid controller. But yeah, so that will be available. And then I have my other channel, Justin's Bible Blog. That's at Justin's Bible Blog. No new content there, but I do still have stuff in the works for that as well. But that is everything right now.
Nice. I'll definitely have to check out your unboxing video, and hopefully by the time I'm watching it, it won't be much won't be much after that I get my hands on my own. I'm very looking forward to. All right. So for me, you can find me on my YouTube gaming channel at the Frozen Gamer 87. I haven't put anything out new in a while, other than the 24-hour stream I did a few weeks ago. But I'm hoping probably sometime within the next few weeks, sometime after I get back, to finally get the recording done for reviewing that QRD Ferrix M5 controller. Get the review for that completed. I'm still going to do that, even though I'm going to have the Steam controller soon, because it is a much more budget-friendly option. And the great thing about it is that where the Steam controller is basically just a PC controller, it's really just intended for PC, and it's not really going to work on consoles. This thing will work on an Xbox, and it will technically work on a Switch or Android phones. Might even work on iOS. I haven't tested it there, but it's a great controller, and it has been my main controller for the past like 8 months. So it's just a truly fantastic controller, and I definitely want to put out the review for that still. And yeah, it's really great. So I'm planning to do that, and then hopefully also get the recording done for the downsides of PC gaming video that I said I was going to do back when I did the Why I Love PC Gaming video, and I just haven't gotten to it. So those are planned, at least for the not too distant future. Hopefully by the time, I'm going to say my goal is to at least have the first of those two up by the beginning of June. And then the second one, hopefully not long after that. I'm hoping to just kind of knock out recording the stuff for both of those in one day, and then take whatever time I need to do the editing beyond that. Because really the number one hurdle for me is always getting the speaking part done and recorded. And then beyond that, it's the editing, which the editing is the part I actually enjoy more, rather than the talking in front of the camera. So you can also find our YouTube, the YouTube channel for the podcast, as well as the Rumble channel. On YouTube, that's at the Orange Box Podcast. On Rumble, it's not a custom URL, but you can still find us there. The video version of the podcast goes live every Friday at 7 a.m. Central Time, barring technical issues. The main thing to note about the video version, the reason you might be interested in watching it, is not so much to see our beautiful faces, though you typically can see that unless we're just having severe technical issues. But so that you can also see clips of games we've been playing, or, stuff we're talking about, like, for example, this week having talked about the new Star Fox game that's coming up at the end of June. So things like that will be displayed, and then occasionally, like when we are having video issues with the OBS side of things, there will be just gameplay from other games in general to fill out those earlier parts of the podcast where we tend to have more problems on the OBS side. You can also find the audio-only version of the podcast on all major audio podcast platforms, including Apple Podcasts, YouTube Music, Spotify, Deezer, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, and others. And that goes live every Friday at 12 a.m. Central Time, barring technical issues. If you'd like to contact us, you can send us an email to theorangeboxpodcast@gmail.com. You can also comment on the video version of the podcast, either on YouTube or Rumble, and we'll be sure to read your comment on the next episode. Now, you also have the option to write a review for the podcast if you are a regular listener, or if you listened and you just can't happen to come across it and like what you heard, or actually hate it. And, feel free to tell us if you hate us. That's fine. I keep forgetting to actually check different services to see if there's any reviews, but I don't think there are, apart from the one my nephew did, like early on, and it's like really obvious that it was written by a kid. So, but yeah, so there's that. But I think that's everything. So, last chance. Any final thoughts?
No, sir.
All right. Well, I am the Frozen Gamer 87. That is I am Zerocon. We are the Orange Box Podcast. And until next time, work hard and you too can have an easier life. Orange Box Podcast out.